Here we are at the Government Affairs Committee meeting of Wednesday, March 6, 2019. It is 6 p.m.-ish. Eric Previn is present. That's me. Barry Johnson.
Here.
Marcia Newman is an excused absence. Lisa Karagian, I haven't heard from, so I'll give her an excused absence if she doesn't show. Victoria called to say she couldn't go out. Jeff?
I am
Carter
here.
is present. Rick Rosner is present. And Patrick Lewis is not here. So, great. Welcome. This is a typo because we've already approved the October 20th Government Affairs minutes, but we can review the correct minutes if we want. But I think that we should just agree that we record these and I give them to the audio man who posts them, and then they're available for consumption. We can, since it's at the committee level, that's what I have. Now, in terms of an update, does anybody want to do something about that? I could do better or something on that.
Well, we can do it at the next meeting.
That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
I'll just simply bring the next couple and we'll put them all at once. Right, last couple. So that seems like an appropriate way forward. So good point. Okay, I'll make a note to myself.
Anybody want some water?
Sure, I'll put water.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. So, public comment, update from the chair. That's me. Good. So, yeah, I would say we had a good forum the other night at the library. This would be like Friday night forum. We heard from constituents that ranged in subject matters from, in fact, transportation was a kind of front and center. A woman talked about her keen interest in potholes and identified a few very specific locations, and we said that we would.
Did you know that very day the city council voted funding?
$250,000.
Were you able to tell her
I
that?
told her.
Yeah,
I was able to offload that the
good.
Blitz had been approved.
So I mean, they're trying to address that citywide.
Correct. The question, I think, and something that could be good for transportation, I'll kick it over to your group because it comes in that door, but we can work on it together if you want, is that we need to do what I think we did annually, which is they give us a date and the truck's going to be around and people submit. It brings the people out of the woodwork, as you recall. It's one of the most busy days of the year because people have potholes to relay with their concerns. Now, the $250,000 set aside for a blitz is one thing, but how much can we get here, and can we get any here, and where is the most urgent need? So any way to figure that out would be great. Transportation has in the past taken
When
a
they've
leading
done it before,
role.
I think they've had the council offices contact the neighborhood councils. So I'm expecting either we'll hear from Krikorian or Dunn.
Well, I would say
probably Krikorian.
I would say we should reach out early and aggressively because otherwise you find out, we already, that was last month. So I think that what we maybe would consider doing, we have to manage it because we're during an election time. So it could be an anonymous just request for information about where
we could do an e-blast.
That's what I mean.
Just asking if you have a location, please send it.
Right, send it. The truck.
Yeah.
We can say the truck will be coming. Funding has been approved.
Right.
That's a little bit of a mislead because it hasn't been approved for our job.
But say we want to be ready with our list.
Right.
And in most big cities, that kind of thing is very often done right before elections.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. They
Show
like
that
to.
they're working hard all the time.
Right.
But
since we have no control-
you're right. But it won't this year. It won't be done before neighborhood council elections.
No. But
Right.
but you know what I mean.
So update from the committee chair. I'll just finish before I go to actually, I realized potholes is item number 6. So I kind of fast forwarded. But it did come up at the forum, and I was giving my remarks on the forum. And the other thing that I just wanted to state is that the lawsuit that we discussed last time has now finally they've agreed to publish it. This is the lawsuit that was conducted by me, actually, against the city to bring clarity about the Brown Act. And now it is clear that in California, whenever you have a special meeting and it's noticed, an item is on the agenda, they have to take a comment. And this will help groups that fight to get stuff on the record before legislative bodies vote. This will help people, a lot of land use individuals, because they are always being run past. They try to do a quick, where there's no time, like a hurry up snap, where there's no time to set up and get the so it's a good deal for the public.
Do we know that the city's not going to appeal? That Fewer is not going to appeal?
Basically,
Well,
I think it's once they decide to do it. I did offer to write a letter, but
Thank you.
I could, in your lawyer who was very gracious, and he wrote back, and I could tell by the way he sounded that I don't think you need like 85 letters. I mean, I think
No.
he wrote.
He wrote one letter and it's done.
That's
but
what I mean.
That's right. It was a resounding opinion, right? But
I
we were very happy to. We reached out. The point is, I reached out to people who were in the field
Yeah.
to say, we may need to send letters to the court. And before that even happened,
He had already
he wrote.
ruled.
Yeah.
He did.
Well, he told me to do it, so it wasn't. Like we were in dis.
But do we know that Fuhr's not going to appeal?
Well, that's a question,
I don't
Barry.
think
Why don't we
it's-
ask?
I don't think
Why don't we ask him?
ask
I think it would
I
be
don't think he's-
extremely.
he probably wouldn't tell.
If you
tell
read the,
anyone.
I would actually. But if I were you, I'll email you. Maybe I did email it to you today.
Yeah, you did.
might read it. It's only 15 pages, and
okay.
when you read it, you'll realize there's no way they can appeal it.
Oh, you mean appeal the decision?
Yeah,
Not the publish it.
right. Since it was
Well, it
against
would-
the city of LA,
It would make my lawyer very happy
It
if
would
they
go to the
appealed it.
Supreme Court of California.
But it's not. It's not.
I would think our city attorney wouldn't be interested in pursuing it, but I don't know.
It would be too hard. It would be too hard.
yeah.
I
much
think.
work.
Well, and it would be indefensible. I mean, there's some opinions you can appeal because you have a claim. I don't know what his claim would be. Everybody seemed to agree. So, that said, that pretty much is my update from the chair. Other than to say that we are now in the election time, so we should just be mindful of that as we think up things, so they don't seem like we're trying to, electioneer in any way, which obviously goes without saying. But we never do in this committee. We're always focusing on what we're trying to look at. So, and unfortunately, sometimes it creates the opposite effect. When you're criticizing them, it doesn't necessarily always help. But not saying it has, but the 10-5 is an example where we pushed very hard to get that approved. And now there's all sorts of evidence that it would have been a great idea, but we did get 31 candidates. So let's move forward. Now, I'm still wondering if we couldn't get it so that the candidates could vote, so that anybody could vote, for us, as opposed to just, if you're an owner could vote for your renter. But let's move forward.
Can I ask one question?
Yes,
about
now we'll open it up.
the
I'm done with it.
appellate-
That's my
the appellate case.
Sure.
Was it unanimous?
Yeah. Right. If there's no dissenting
not even
opinion
be appealable.
from the high and mighty judges, exactly.
Oh yeah, because you had 3 judges, right? On your
There were 4 in the
or
room, but
4.
3 all agreed, and
That'd be a tough
so we need
climb.
to get some sort of a helmet to keep my head in check, so that I don't think that I'm always right.
So maybe it wouldn't even be allowable to go to the Supreme Court.
I don't know what the rule is on that,
Yeah.
but sometimes in some states, if you get a unanimous intermediate appeal, it's not appealable.
Yeah.
But if I'm
Again,
Michael
read it.
Fur, whatever his name is,
Fuhr.
If I'm him and I see a unanimous opinion, the odds are not good.
Yeah.
Rick,
So,
did you-
thank you.
Just not on this subject, but where do you go to see a list of who's running?
Good question. So I have a link that somebody sent me, and I couldn't find it myself, just for the record. When I went, but I can forward it to you.
If you
Is my
just
point.
Google LA City Clerk, and then click on city elections, and then click on neighborhood council, you'll get it.
Okay,
It's
well,
really
that is-
easy
that-
way. That's the easiest
Easy
way.
for you. I'm just going to be honest with you. I did exactly what you said, and I could not. I was like, I thought I must be, obviously, there's something wrong with me, but I could not find that particular thing. I could find the registration portal.
But
That's
yeah,
fine.
like LA City, well,
You described it
not the
exactly right. You
registration,
described
just
it exactly right.
who's running.
Your instructions are perfect. I am a moron, or it's hard to find.
And I was reading Donald
Google
Trump's
LA City
signature, so I missed what you said.
Google LA City Clerk, and then you click on city elections, and then you'll see a thing to click on neighborhood council candidate list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then it'll ask you
15 different questions.
No. Then it just you have to click on the neighborhood council of the 95 that you want.
If you happen to know your region off the top of your head.
No, you don't
Yes.
need to know the region. Yeah.
Well, should we glance at it now or not now? Later. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause it's-
so
the
let's. It's off.
computer's
It's not
off.
on the agenda. You're disrupting the meeting. Okay. So,
I
so you had a comment. Any other comments on that, Rick? Was that just your question, Rick? Or, Okay, fine.
Thank you.
So, well, just as we shuffle past, there were some other things that came up at that forum. Did any of them memorable? We talked a lot about.
I mean, it was mostly homeless, but
Was it? Yeah, we did have a
at
little
least
bit.
for the, I didn't say for
The period you were there, right? But it was good because we had kind of two views with respectful dialogue, as opposed to one angry mob or one.
And I heard there was
the opposite.
somebody who brought up the MTA subway under the paralleling the 405.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That came up too.
But, this neighborhood council many years ago, it's probably 4 years ago now, did a motion supporting then what Sherman Oaks said in doing a subway, and now they've done another one saying they want the subway going under Van Nuys Boulevard and then under the mountains to Westwood.
Yeah, the Sepulveda one, but that's a big project. Yeah.
The trip from Universal to Hollywood is, I think, the longest tunnel that's ever been built in history.
In a subway.
For anything. And
The Coinga Pass tunnel? The one that
Yeah,
goes
but
underneath
there's
from Universal?
there's
Okay.
tunnels in Europe that are
well,
50 miles
Well, the
long.
tunnel.
but
for
but,
example.
but
Probably 30
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But for a subway, yeah, it's a long distance
600
between
feet
stops.
below.
Yeah, it's deep.
I forgot about Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have they done for us lately?
Yeah.
But where are they going to get the money to do this? I mean, really. But that's.
I don't know. There were a lot of great ideas about transportation. It's it's a subject that people
Sherman
want to talk
Oaks
about.
was voicing that MTA wanted to do a light rail. Well, light rail's like 3 cars, and you get no volume, so that would be a waste of money. So if they're going to do rail, it's got to be full on subway, unless they're going to do something on top of the freeway. So
Now, let me just throw it out there because I noticed that the orange line connects from the red line at Universal and is, kind of several cars long and shuffles along very quickly on the surface. And obviously, the benefit to something like that is you don't have to dig the expensive hole and spend so much money. And plus, as the vehicles become more electric, won't that be kind of like
but
more
they're
appealing?
Korean's already saying that MTA is already looking at making that rail because the capacity on those buses isn't enough.
Yeah.
So,
well, rails are certainly
and
very expensive.
I don't know if you know the whole history. It was that whole orange line
Was supposed to be
supposed to
right.
be light
No, I know.
rail.
They ran out of
and no.
No?
It was because in Valley Village, it was
Opposition was
Chandler
strong. Oh.
along the Chandler corridor where there's single family homes. They didn't want it.
I see.
So
Well, we talked about a lot of cool things. The monorail possibility, which is not, active at the moment. The boring machine that people are interested in, going on the Musk's thing.
The thing that came up that I liked, the last mile problem. I've never heard it called that.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And like my wife hates the scooters, but really they're part of
That.
the solution.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're part of the problem. One of her friends was knocked down by a scooter and had her kneecap busted.
they're just not illegal to ride through a park or on a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I saw one riding through North Hollywood Park yesterday.
Right, but
for the first time.
But you can see how as we go forward, the issue is how can we get the cars off the road? That's the category. And by the way, very sad that Alex Trebek is struggling now. That was a very touching. If you didn't see it, he
Lives in Studio City.
he's a resident. So
What's wrong with it?
he's going to be sick.
Pancreatic.
Yeah, but he's
Pancreatic
fighting.
cancer.
He wants to make. He says he's got a 3-year contract. and
Is he?
he's
So
hoping he
he's
can
still
fulfill.
planning to work.
Oh yeah, he's going to work
Yeah.
until they carry him off,
Yeah.
which will be.
But that's a good attitude.
yeah.
That,
Oh, absolutely.
that just keeping on working can help keep you healthier, perhaps.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the idea that the last mile and those scooters, you can suddenly so the question, the big area is get the cars off the road, and at Metro they had a little conversation, a little chit chat last week about what's up, and they're really pushing to get things ready for 2028, which is the year of the Olympics. So they've got these projects that they're accelerating.
And if you go there again, say that's a bunch of crap because you don't spend billions of dollars for 2 weeks
that's an
We
interesting
had 2
question.
weeks in '84 that we got by just fine because companies around town took vacation. More people took vacations. There was no problem with a big traffic jam. It was like everybody said it was the best 2 weeks we've had ever. So Metro's totally trying, I can see them already, totally trying to use this 2 weeks of Olympics to sign off on all these big spending things, and it's a load of crap.
Well,
So-
no rebuttal to that one, but I will say that that it's interesting to think about the solutions, because as we move forward, we always are trying to think of solutions. I gave a comment that was about congestion pricing. You may have seen it in the paper, which is that it's cost prohibitive. It's intended to make it cost prohibitive for people to go on the road, and that's the wrong approach. My tiny little brain jumped to the other side, which is if we want to get people off the road and take a tougher commute by going through the trains or whatever, pay them a little something. But the model of penalizing the people who have to travel from far out. At our 2 forums ago, we heard about people coming. If you want to live around, you can't live around here unless you have a little more money. So, but if you want to work around here, it's fine. But you have to come in from somewhere where you live. So that means you're the one who's the people who don't have as much. So anyway, it seems obvious, but it's not. And they're looking at it works in London. There's some good.
Well, it makes sense because London and New York are concentrated urban areas.
Right.
Yeah,
You have to be rich to be in London
That's right.
anyway.
That's
and
it.
New York.
The inequality issues are not as obvious in that space, so that's a good reason. Good point. But I was wondering if there's a way to just put your brain on, because obviously the idea will be immediately roared out of the room. But how would that work? To get someone who lives
Congestion
in
pricing?
No, the opposite.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that you get people off the road by incentive. You pay people not to go on the road.
Make the
as opposed to
bus and subway fare 25 cents. Make it free. I don't know.
One way that I think is out there in the discussion is companies and organizations can allow, like, for example, they'll take the incentive to tell Rosner and Johnson, you work from home Tuesdays and Fridays.
Right.
Yes. We can go in our undies. We can just do whatever we want and never work. Yes.
What's really funny? About an hour and a half ago, I was talking to a relative in Japan of mine, and
I didn't know you were Japanese.
No. For the Olympics they're already talking about, say an office worker, 3 out of 5 days, and this is during one of the Olympic weeks, they would work on their computer at home instead of going into the office. So that kind of thing is already
Let's consult
being
with a
thought of.
genius. I mean, to me that sounds like a great idea. Now, the only problem is obviously as I pointed out, there's no chance in hell that anybody's going to do a lick of work if they're at home in their undies.
No.
They're going to watch TV. But again,
They say that's
this is
not
good
true,
for the people.
though.
No, I
That
know.
people that work at home are often more productive.
I love that study.
It-
That must be a
it's-
Metro study.
It's you do a day's worth of work in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then maybe you post it, kind of spread it out throughout the day.
The other thing on congestion pricing, I totally think that will be in the courts, because I believe by state statute, all of our freeways are legally required to be free and have been so since the 40s. And the reason they got away with the carpool lane was because it was for carpool. But now we're talking putting a charge on the everyday, any motorist for any lane. And they built those carpool lanes. They weren't part of the quote-unquote free way. And this time, I don't think they're going to get... I think state law would have to be changed to make our freeways not free.
Well, I hate to be the...
Got to pay for it somehow, guy.
hasn't the ship sort of sailed on this here in this city? If you look at New York, where I've lived, and Philadelphia, where I've lived, and they are, you've got, in both cities, you've got two of the best commuter train systems. in the United States. Plus, in New York, you have, and you've all been there, I'm sure, you've got a subway system that is second to none.
Well, hold on.
Philly has.
You haven't been there in a while. It's set
goes
up well,
every-
but
it
it's
goes
falling
everywhere.
apart, and they're in deep trouble, as you know. They can't get it to work.
But it's
It's
there.
the only problem.
It's there.
Yeah, it exists, right. If it
and-
were functioning well, it'd be appropriate.
Well, it's the cheapest way to get around. But here, they use. I mean, back in the old days, they had trolleys.
Yeah.
And then the tire.
There's the
car
map.
And automobile companies decided to go freeway. Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
a long history of influence in
It's,
city politics, right?
Yeah, now we're paying the price. Buying,
Right.
the Expo line is all, and the Orange line. All these lines are on where the old streetcars were in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, until in 1960 they all went away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
little
much.
Santa Monica next to big Santa Monica is all because
That was a train.
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Oh.
Where they built buildings
the
and
subway
parking
is
now.
nice. I mean, it is nice here. I mean, the red line is what I used to take when I was downtown.
And we had the chance in the 60s and 70s to do it when San Francisco did BART.
Oh, yeah.
And we
BART.
didn't.
San
And look what
Francisco.
San Francisco's got a great system.
Right. It's a different topography because we have the mountain, but so there are
Right.
some issues.
But they've
it's-
got the bay
right,
there.
right? And I'm just pointing out that it's you could see how because it is vast. But on the other hand, we're doing it, and we're putting up train. They are moving forward with some of these projects. I agree about the Olympics, by the way. It seems a little bit awkward. The other point that
Yeah.
I'll just bring up because Kerkorian made it, and he kind of briefly, stood up and said, and we've heard him say this before, these technology companies in the transportation space, like Waze and Uber and Lyft and the one that helps, they're all, part of the solution, but they need to pull their weight, was his speech.
Tax.
Before we start, and by the way, I love your presentation on congestion pricing, he said, first he took that position, that's how the pros do it. He told the congestion guy, who was going to set up this study to do a trial of that, I really appreciate what you're doing, and all these profligate spenders, other than me, are wrong for sticking up for their constituents. It felt like kabuki theater, just to be honest.
It
is kabuki theater.
It's the same thing.
I
But
sent
then
an
he said,
an
"I want
email
to tag all these
objecting to
people."
that.
Good. Uber and Lyft, he said, should all be paying an extra $1 for every ride. And
Who?
to
the city.
To Metro.
to Metro.
Well,
Now,
whatever.
but
all
here's
the same.
Yeah.
so someone has to pay for something. But of course, that falls on who? Who pays that? You think Uber and it goes right
rider
on?
does.
Yeah, the rider. So
How about this?
it raises the question.
If you could put when you get onto a freeway, and so you change the statute. Okay, fine. The people in the north, they're not going to care. Northern part of the state. You put what they used to have, like on the Connecticut Turnpike. There used to be, and they don't. Now it's free. They paid for it, but there used to be. You get on and you throw in like a quarter into a box.
Like every 10 miles or
Talking
something.
about a toll?
Yes.
Yeah.
Toll, right.
Well, you could call it what you like.
toll
but
road.
It was money
Right.
going into a box, and I don't really think it's going to break anybody. That because you have to stop anyway usually for the red light. You have the box there. You throw the quarter in, whatever the hell it is, and think of what that would generate. I mean, it's got to be.
What if you miss?
Well, yeah, then you get out and you
you
pick
help
it
the
up.
homeless.
Or you do it again. But that
joint program.
I don't think that, it'd be a toll road.
Yeah.
But only when you get on. And you go as far as you want.
You're disrupting the meeting, sir. I'm sorry. I know.
Those scooters are viewed as a scourge they're like the vaping
Right.
of transportation.
These are the
So true.
green. They park the just for Jeff so he knows, and then we'll go with the story.
There are these little motorized
gre-
scooters that they're
You can rent them
15
for
cents a
15
minute.
cents.
You grab them where you find them,
They leave them around the
and
city.
then you just dump them when you're done,
Yeah.
and which is an ugly problem.
Right, but they're solving it. And they're finding places where you can leave them,
Sure.
and they're making it so that you have to take a picture of it the right way before you leave. But it's annoying to people who get hit by them, like
So
his
if
friend.
they want to be thought of better without costing too much, give a partial credit for that last mile for people who take public transportation.
Great idea.
Somebody gets off the subway, you punch in the ticket number on your, what if you've got a little subway receipt? Punch it
card.
in. That
Well, your
gets you-
card, no.
Yeah, your tap card.
Your tap card
Okay.
would know it.
All right, so your tap card gets you, 5 free minutes. It costs the scooter company, 75 cents or
Or
something.
what
Yeah.
about this? What about this? If you just to make it real simple, I mean, could the subsidy be $1.75? That's the cost of the subway. So in other
It'd be
words,
something like that, yeah.
if you
It could
if
be
you
$1.75
ride- yeah,
off.
If you, exactly, it just so then it would be real easy. Which is if you show up on one of those scooters and you've exceeded $1 or $2, that your tap card will not be charged. It will note you, but because you're, I don't know, we're inventing good stuff, but it's a great idea. Frankly, you got a great idea
Well,
there. I'll bring that up in some forum.
At least
where
now they have turnstiles. I remember the first time I ever rode the red
Yes,
line.
now they're checking.
And I thought,
This
what
is
the
crazy.
hell is this? There's no turnstiles.
Yeah.
And in the year, maybe 2 years that I would ride it, I can think of 6 times when they checked. But now they have, oh, that's good.
They will check from time to time. Okay. Well, any comments that anybody wants to bring independently on anything before that's from
From
folks?
6.
Yeah,
Right.
no, 4 public comments or
Oh.
or 5.
On what we talked about?
Yeah, I mean we've been kind of doing 4 and 5 now by bringing up a few things, but
Yeah.
if anybody, I just want to before we move on to the potholes and recycling, some of which we talked.
I
about.
would say, in my view,
Yeah.
that even proposing a tax on Uber or Lyft or any similar thing is confiscatory. The rider will pay it. I have no political or financial interest in either of these.
Take a look at your Form 700.
But they do a service for people,
Yeah.
especially in this city where there ain't no cabs, basically. It's not like Manhattan. And
Don't cabs pay a tax in this city?
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
I think.
Uber has to pay some form of income
Yeah.
tax.
I mean, I think it's
But
fair.
just to tax and tax and tax.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
for an elderly woman who has to get to the hospital for a checkup,
Right.
And she doesn't have a car, and if she can get an Uber,
It's great.
it's not just rich people that are using this.
Yeah.
So,
No, but it brings up an interesting point that, and then we'll go on to the thing because we really have nothing left except for we're going to talk about a couple things left. But I just want to. One thing that came up was, the future and the artificial intelligence, which is going to be providing lots of services like Ubers, possibly without a driver, buses without drivers, transportation that can be functional without those folks. So it raises the question, what's going to happen to those folks? And so we did talk about that. It's a little bit outside of the jurisdiction of, just Studio City, but it's true. It's going to affect all of us. And it was an interesting conversation. And there's a guy running for office on a very, I would say, left side of things named Andrew Yang, who has this idea for a permanent kind of a dividend so that when these technology companies become even bigger and more powerful because of all the brilliant things they're doing, and the folks who are disenfranchised are going to be left with nothing, they'll be left with something, which is a payment on a monthly basis, a dividend like stock, like the old days.
CD12 candidate?
No, this is a candidate for the president. It's a
Oh.
really big. It's a big idea. He's a billionaire.
Okay.
In his own
Oh, yeah,
right.
I've
For
heard of
some,
him.
he did something. He's a young, I think he's gay, Asian guy who's very articulate, and he makes this point. He made it on some of these fancy podcasts, Sam Harris, Rogan, he goes on and they attack him instantly like we all would, and he stands up and makes it pretty smart. It's pretty good.
It's just another name for guaranteed minimum wage.
It's a guaranteed minimum.
But it's
small.
also legitimate.
It's legitimate.
What powers everything into the human engine is everybody spending 3-4 hours a day on social media, which
What I don't understand what
he's suggesting. Okay, so what he's suggesting is I think it's called a permanent. It's like a stipend, but every month you'll get some income. $1,000. Everybody will get it, because the idea is that everybody comprises a lot of people, like 30 or 40% or 50% of those people are going to be pounding the pavement, trying to redefine themselves in an economy that has changed because of the service jobs being replaced by artificial intelligence. So we can't go into it too deeply, but I can share with you the link and you can listen. We can talk about it more. But it is an interesting idea. I just wanted to bring it up, and you're welcome to react.
But who pays it?
It gets paid out of a tax, more or less, but on the companies and the folks who are redefining, because they're gonna have contracts to build the entire new infrastructure that's better, uses less people. But if the current people who use it don't have any way to earn money, it's a real question, because a truck driver who did a good job makes $80,000 a year on a good year, maybe even a little, but he works like a dog. He's gone all the time. Now, he didn't do so good in high school on the first time around, maybe, but so now we're going to retrain him to be a what? And so this models of all these retraining ideas, everyone's going to, I think that the right and some parts of the left have made the point that, people leave industry towns and then everybody is screwed. And they don't really care because they're busy getting the tax credit somewhere else. So this is something, he's definitely on the left, as I say. This is not the leading candidate for the Democratic Party or even the Independent Party, but he's a smart guy. It's an interesting point, and it raises the question, oh my God, what are we going to do? He may be right. I mean, all these people are going to be, you can already see people having a hard time finding work.
if it weren't for those people, I mean, that's one of the 50 ways that Trump became president, is people.
It contributed to certainly the displeasure in America. Jeff, do you have a comment? You look. I know you're having a cookie, but take your time.
I'm told that a few years ago, someone came to Mayor Villaraigosa and said, "There's a lot of land toward on the southern part of the city that is either abandoned or open or whatever. We would like to turn it into a technology center and hire people to do stuff and all this." And he turned it down. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, in New York City, a similar group went to the Bloomberg and said, Roosevelt Island, down at the bottom you've got stuff, you've got some people living in the middle, but at the top there really isn't much going on. So we'd like to do a technology sort of center that would employ people at all different levels, and he jumped all over it, and I think they're doing it, or going to do it. So again, it's a difference in view and constituencies, and so that's, I just wanted to throw that in.
Fair enough.
We're just a little town, but we could do something like that on a boutique level, where, we don't have the retail graveyard that further down Ventura has, but there are always some places that are vacant, like that car dealership. That, I don't know, maybe they used to be Volvos, and then there was, but anyway.
That's a good point.
And there are always stores coming in and out. There's probably office space that's vacant, and I'm wondering if there's a way to get the landlords who are making zero to offer a discounted rent as for a few months as a business, as a tech incubator. Like say some companies always, little startup tech companies always need, the equivalent of a garage to get started in. And those companies would love to be in Studio City. The cachet, the access to nice restaurants, it's a nice place to be.
Yeah.
And, you say, well, we can offer you 4 months for this much rent, and if it's still vacant, options on further months, but...
It's a good idea.
And, in return, maybe, you take some of the students at some of the schools around here and you let them PA or intern or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's a great idea. It's ambitious and it speaks to our situation in our city. We could think about that, maybe develop it, bring it back, and talk about it. It's a good idea. I like that idea. And it's local too. So good. All right. Any other free comments in this space at the moment? No. Okay, we'll move on then to the potholes we talked about, and I think we're going to do an e-blast. We agreed to announce that there was a blitz funding, that we should get our stuff in early,
ready.
Get our list ready.
Do you want to do that
specific.
e-blast?
Yeah, or you can, because everybody, you have a big following of that particular group.
All right.
And then it takes it out of the election area
All right.
where I'm not trying to get favors. So I like that. You take care of that.
That's how El D'Amato got to the Senate
Right.
in New York.
And then for recycling, we had an interesting conversation where somebody brought up, I'm trying to remember exactly, that it's extremely appalling that a typical can of soda or bottle of beer has a 5-cent bounty on it, whatever that's called, the return.
Right.
And yet, if you bring it to Ralph's or Vaughn's, they tell you to no
when this
comprende. They don't want to take
when
it.
the law first went into putting 5 cents on one of these, we had companies around town where you could bring these to, and in the Vaughn's parking lot here, we had one, and you bring them there, and you got 5 cents.
Really?
Now, because I save them and I do bring them,
Good.
but
Where?
there used to be places all over the valley. Now the closest place to us is in Burbank,
Correct.
by the Kmart that's going out of business. It's a Ralph's, and there's some out like in Canoga Park and Woodland Hills, but it's
Unacceptable.
well, in our assemblyman Nazarians even said it's gotten really bad because the state made this law, and now all these places, I don't know why they've gone out of business, but they have. Well,
I'll tell you why. Because
some of it was Ralph's not evicting them from the parking lot because they wanted the parking spaces.
Right. But what's really at play is it is a burden. There's a burden to do it. You have to package it up. Then you have to move it somewhere, and someone has to come and get it. And so the infrastructure for that is not good. And what we were wondering on the local level was, could we fill that gap possibly in some way to see how it works? In other words, as a neighborhood council-like activity, every weekend we have a farmer's market.
Yeah.
What if we arranged with our budget, or I don't think this came up exactly. I think I suggested, down by the Metro we could have there's a Goodwill
Well,
bin.
if you found a recycling company that was, if you're doing it so people would come to the market and bring their bags to deposit these things,
That's
but
what we're
not
proposing,
get
right.
money.
Well, or get half the money. If you bring 20 cans, you get 50 cents.
There's a
voucher to spend just at the market.
There's a recycling company.
Or a voucher at the market, yeah. That's a good idea.
At Vineland and Burbank, behind the Clown liquor store.
But do you like the idea of the voucher at the market?
Yeah.
Because then it would encourage the farmer's market.
They're a company that buys by weight, not by the bottle.
Right.
And the market might be able to partner with them.
Yeah. So this is a good idea.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
When if I buy a box of seltzer water. Okay? They're going to charge an extra amount for each
CRV, it's called, right?
5 cents for each.
5 cents
Yeah,
per
but
can. If I come back to the same Ralph's with the empty cans, was it
Yes.
originally contemplated
No.
that Ralph's would give me back?
no, but almost every Ralph's in this area had one.
I'm not sure I agree with you. What do you mean, no? It used to be that if you brought it back...
No,
there
you
was
couldn't bring it back to the store, is what you're saying.
Was it a deposit or was it a fee?
It was a fee that you could get back, but on every supermarket,
Deposit.
if you look at the door, usually,
Right.
or right next to the door, there's a little thing saying where the closest recycling place is to bring it to.
But if you go to that one, if you go there, will they give you a nickel for each one?
Some of them will, some of them do it by weight. They used to all
Okay.
do it
All right. Okay.
by piece.
All right.
Okay. I went to a presentation by lead officers, and they said the remaining places are now they have a lot of crime around there because homeless people,
That's what their thing.
they go there to
But and so there's crime there because they're there is the feeling? or-
I don't know, 1/3 of homeless people have mental issues and stuff, and so the whole deal gets kind of those places have a sketchy kind of.
But let's just imagine for the purposes of what we're talking about, if we were to conceive talk to the people who run the market, say, look, we'd like to invite the people who come to the market to bring their stuff here so they don't have to bring it to Burbank, and then we'll, take it. I mean, again, we're all volunteers.
It's not sketchy because you've
Right.
got the people who go to the market. My wife just sets aside, she collects our cans and
Yeah.
bottles, and she puts them in a bag on top of our garbage for people who scavenge that
Right,
stuff.
they come through the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally sustainable.
Yeah, I see that too.
And the idea of coming to the market with your bag, but it's full of your cans, you pour them into the thing, get your $2 voucher, and then you go shopping at the
At the
market and
market.
put your vegetables in your bag. That's just a great thing. And then the only thing that's not worked out is who pays to deliver the stuff to the homeless place in Burbank, which is not. I was being light because of his comment. And the answer is somebody, and we will pay them the proceeds of, or perhaps as you say, it's a company that just will do it because they know that the value of what you get is
there's
worth.
an independent.
Yeah.
The one in Burbank is a chain, but
But on the
there's
other
an
hand-
independent one at Vineland and Burbank.
Yeah, but is it? I mean, that's a good question. Like,
That might
how
be
many people
interesting.
go to the market? How many people would tune into the program? And at first, it would have to be volunteer till you could show some numbers to show, hey, look,
Yeah.
we got 500 once we announced it the second week. That's pretty good. 500 cans. That's enough to pay a guy to
How much?
put it in a supermarket.
What's a nickel? What's 5 cents times 5?
Well, 10
It
cents.
takes 20 for $1.
Yeah.
20 of these make $1.
And 24 in two 12 packs is a 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people go through a lot of stuff. These have value too, don't they?
They're 5 cents.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I've just been.
Yeah, they charge.
I mean, it's amazing how.
Plus, they charge for the bags.
But they're doing a really bad job because they're charging a lot, and most of the stuff is not making it to the recycling. So it's a great area. That was the discussion. Let's move forward. How should we move forward? Does somebody want to write something up, or should I write something up and we'll bring it back to, or just bring it to the? I won't be at the board meeting, this coming board meeting, so we can.
Do you want to contact the Studio City Farmers Market and ask them
who's the
first?
right person? Yeah, let's see who they are. Who are they? Diamond? No. Why don't you reach out to them and see
I
if
can
they're
do
open?
that.
Right.
I'll ask Beth Diamond.
Okay. And
And I will look up. I'll try to find the statute that authorizes the 5 cent
cool.
thing and exactly.
What
And
the-
it's
what
10
it is,
cents
yeah.
for bigger bottles,
We can
like
report on it.
2
That
liter
would be
bottles.
helpful. Good.
Yeah, and that was the state law, right?
Yeah.
It's anywhere.
It's state.
Okay, so we'll find it.
Great. Okay. So good. We can move
Okay.
on. I think that's a good to-do list. Now, then there was a typo here about the clerk, just to add insult to injury about the bylaws, so we can examine. That's my mistake. Item 7 is Friday night forum on campaign finance and city elections. I put this on there mainly just to re-invite them to let them know that we have not forgotten and that things have not gotten better just because they've said no. And, if when they are, and we have several forums for the election, so if they want to, suddenly agree, that will be great.
Or maybe even if it's right after the election, we can get them to do it.
No, exactly.
I mean, it's something we could do anytime in the next 3 months.
And we don't want to let the pressure off because we would like an explanation, I think, is the key thing. So that one, there's no action.
And they kind of seemed, there was interest in them attending initially, wasn't there?
And the interest is still there. It's literally about putting enough pressure on them to agree. It's not a fun conversation because they're ripping us off. So, but if they come, it will be because they feel the pressure to talk about it, and frankly, they do. I have a relationship with some of these guys,
and Rue really is for this, isn't he? Reform.
This is the thing. Koretz was the one who nibbled and said, "Sure, I'll come," and then he said, "Actually, I won't come unless you can get others to come."
Yeah,
and I said, "Me? How about you? They're your brethren. Why don't you just reach over to Rue and tickle them and then Bonin, you can bring them all?" And he said, and that's where we are now. We're still in the
Rue is all. Keeps talking about.
That's why we targeted him.
He doesn't get, he doesn't want to get money from
developers.
The wrong. Yeah.
And I mean, is there an update on all that? There is, but I don't know if I can
what
produce
was the
it
thing
now.
that you just sent out? You sent out something that showed. I have to look at that.
The chart, the campaign finance chart. Yeah. So that showed the dramatic amount of public matching money going to the candidates who really don't need it. So kind of like a lunch subsidy program in which those who are being subsidized, it turns out, are only the ones who don't need the subsidies. And the ones who need the subsidies are getting nothing. And it's because of a threshold. And we wrote a nice letter. He was ready to talk about it. And now we're going to get them to come eventually. But not tonight. But that's on the agenda. So I don't think there's any... I might...
Does
there's
the Los
no
Angeles
action.
Times cover any of that?
Yeah, they do. And they have.
Okay.
As you know, in fact, they do. And they covered the last... They'll be back.
Good.
So I don't see any action on 7. 8. This is the community impact statement. This came from Barry, and the Urban Blight Group sent out a big email. Billboard Blight, Ban Billboard Blight Group sent out an email, and we have put on the agenda a motion to recommend to the council a community impact statement. Now, we would take it to the board first, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll make that clear, but it's to convey to the members of the transportation committee at the city our support for the motion offered in January 29th, 19, by Blumenfield, Councilmember Blumenfield and Harris Dawson. We also oppose the incursion of an entirely new form of digital advertising onto our streets. They're called Firefly signs. They're dangerous, ugly, distracting, and even illegal under the California Vehicle Code. And our visual environment is already burdened enough with the clutter of advertising. And these signs will take rotating digital ads into every neighborhood of the city, including residential neighborhoods where they've never been before. We need to stop it now before it spreads any further. So we would do a community impact statement to that effect if we agree. But we should discuss it to see if people have views on that. If you don't know what that means, it's like on the roof of
an Uber, let's say.
Or anything.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly attractive and interesting, but that's bad if you're driving. And it's annoying if you're not. Right. And it's a question.
Well, and also in our city, unlike, say, Manhattan, where you see it on top of cabs and stuff, here we're going out of urban downtown and into residential single-family neighborhoods. It's quite a different layout than Manhattan, let's say.
Billboards.
Yeah. And we don't have billboards in our neighborhoods.
Well, but
in our
sure, Boulevard is all,
He has them, yeah.
It's Blade Runner meets Vegas right in front of your house.
True.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I'll play the opposite side just for the heck of it, which is, folks, we just talked about needing to get some money to provide metro, better infrastructure. And, we've ruled out all of the possibilities. And, this kind of advertising, though annoying, I mean, it's the least annoying of the many annoying ones, in my opinion, because it's like saying, let's outlaw ugly cars, because it's an ugly car. It's a car with a big ugly thing on it. I saw one yesterday. There was a truck. It was literally a truck, like a box truck, and it was driving down Grand Avenue, and on each side of the box truck was a woo, like and it was unclear what they were. I mean, the advertising was kind of weird, but when you looked closely, you could see it was something, and it was noisy and obtrusive. It was kind of like an ice cream truck trying to get your attention in traffic. So that's the idea. They want to, and I can immediately react to that. But on the other hand, a sleek little Uber with a little rail that's saying, the Lakers just won or something like that. I wonder.
But if you really want to tax that Uber, there's ways to tax that Uber without having that sign on top.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The consumer doesn't want to pay for the advertising, although they ultimately do. But if it was something that attached, like I have a guy at my YMCA who drives around in a Tabasco truck. It looks like the Tabasco sauce. And I once asked him, I said, how does that work? And they pay him to paint his car like whatever that Tabasco, the signature Tabasco sauce. So, I mean, should that be illegal? How dare these people paint their cars like condiments? It's outrageous. This guy's driving around a ketchup truck. Next thing you know, there'll be a French's mustard guy. So I don't know. We are fussy. I will stipulate that.
But
and I
painting
think
on a car is different than attaching an electronic
I don't think the
sign.
Uber people would want to do that.
Yeah.
Have they said that they do want to?
Everybody wants to. How could you not? You make money.
Uber and Lyft have.
I mean, their brand is sort of like, if you've always dreamed of having a limousine,
Right.
This is it. Okay?
I'm sure they're fighting.
Black cars, clean, nice.
Upscale.
Yeah.
But
Even the cheap ones.
their margins are bad,
Yeah.
which and most of it comes down on the heads of the drivers. Who
That's
are
right.
Bait and switched into thinking they're going to
Before we shunt them into the.
I would ask the MTA this, though. If they want to make money, one way, and I've said this before, why don't they sell advertising on the buses and on the subways and on the red line and on the blue line and the purple
They
line?
do.
They do. They do on the buses.
Yeah, you
for
see
sure,
the ads when you're sitting on the subway up above.
I have
Yeah.
never, well, I've been on one lately, but have they started doing that?
Yeah.
But they're not doing as much as they could.
Yeah,
But
they could do more.
But
But
they
it
don't
should
want
be-
to. They argue about it.
Why
Some of the
don't they wanna
people,
do it?
some of the, for the same reason people argue about everything. Some people feel that it's obtrusive and that they don't want the infrastructure to be advertising mechanisms only. I mean, I agree. Look, when you pick your battles, if the train is painted a certain color and it says, brought to you by Universal, that does not upset my afternoon. But, I don't know. I mean, I'm also wary because we have given such a good deal to the advertisers in LA because they have, it's not a secret, have a close personal relationship with the electeds. So, and it's a pittance of the amount of money they're moving to smear whatever they need to into the coffers of the electeds. I mean, they literally all are just sort of like
And
catching the big sums of.
also say that the taste level of some of the billboards
Is bad.
is bad.
But that's,
But
again,
that's a
First
First
Amendment.
Amendment
But
right.
Barry, what about also, there's the other detail, which is those electronic billboards that are in the roadway.
They've been fighting those for.
Yeah. I mean, those to me are dangerous. I don't think there's any good reason to have a television as you're driving on the freeway,
Right.
And they tried one near the airport, and I found it really, it tested the boundaries,
Yeah, but and that's the city where it is, right near the 405.
Yeah.
It's the city of Inglewood.
Right, because they're trying and they'll take
Yeah.
the money. So anyway, so what is this item we're talking about? Got a little slow.
8.
So I think we all agree on the digital. Do we agree? I mean, I'm happy to bring it to the
I
board.
would say no, but
I
I
think
would say to
it's-
push the MTA. Again, subways in other cities have advertising all the way across.
Yeah.
Dentists, optometrists, whatever. You fall, we sue.
And
I mean, it may
our
not be
subways
classy,
and
but
buses are not going into our home, neighborhoods with our residential neighborhoods,
Right.
as would Ubers and Lyfts.
Right. Now, I will say that our mobile pit stop program seems to have gotten a little zets forward because, we discussed it at the Metro Board and Krikorian kind of nodded. They all said, oh, well, let's think about it's MTA. So I presented it to them, and the mayor was caught slightly, but he was like, sounds good. Almost gave me the thumbs up. So I think that's good news to try that. And those things could have a little bit of advertising on it. It's right in a media district. That's an ideal spot to have a little poster, of your entertainment products and such.
Yeah, I don't see what it's a matter of taste and proportionality, sort of.
Right.
But if you can control those,
why not?
You make money.
Great. So Barry, because I will not be at the next board meeting, I'm going to be out of town. Would you like to collaborate, or maybe, this is one that's almost half written. If you want to, or I can try to draft it, send it to you, and you can present it for vote or whatever.
Do you want to just do that and then say I'm going to be the one
presenting?
The vice chair is going to be presenting.
That's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So if you'll just give the report,
that's fine.
Good. So excellent. So we'll but before
and
the 20th,
if we end
let's
up
make
with
sure
any
we have
other
it.
motions,
Yeah. Okay. So good.
Okay.
So we've agreed that we're going to send a motion to the board to recommend a CIS against.
And I see you've got the council file number too.
Right, I stuck it in there.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the final, or the item number 9. Item number 9 is a constituent who disclosure is on the board now, I believe. Marcia, on our committee, frankly. Marcia Newman brought to my attention that there are a couple films that were nominated for Oscars. So it brings up the question of, should we, as a government affairs committee, acknowledge that? Should we, as a board, do a resolution like they do at City Hall? I have mixed feelings about it, but it's a nice idea. I definitely am impressed that people were nominated for an Oscar. That's kind of a high standard.
Or we could ask Krikorian to do it, who has a student film festival at the El Portel or somewhere by his office.
Right. Well, that's an interesting point. Maybe that's what we should do but I think, here's what I think is maybe the idea. First of all, I don't think we can do this just willy-nilly because it feels like it's not our purview to be going around handing out awards. We can if that's what we decide we want to do, but I don't necessarily feel like doing that exclusively.
And there's one other thing.
Yeah.
The period one.
Yeah.
With connection to Oakwood, it's Oakwood up on Magnolia, not Moore Park.
Yeah, but it's the same school.
I know, but I'm just saying it's not like the school is in Studio City that has the connection to the film, is what I'm saying.
No, but those, I will accept the technicality, but I think that they should get credit for it. And I should disclose one of my kids went to Oakwood, so if that's a conflict. But to me, Oakwood is definitely in Studio City.
The other one, what's the other one?
Skin.
What's the connection to us for that
one?
So
I think, I don't know the person, but I know that a person from Studio City, I believe Marcia's relative, produced this documentary that got recognized and nominated but didn't win. And they live in Studio City. And, so I thought, you can't do one and not the other. Why don't we stick them both in there? And then I like your idea, frankly, of maybe we could recognize it and make it so that the board recommends that the city acknowledge them.
And send it to
Krikorian.
Yeah.
And then Krikorian can decide if he wants to. That's a little bit of
And his recognition, they're fancy things, will look a whole lot better than anything we could create.
It's this is stuff that I have almost no interest in.
It'll
even
look
though I'm
more
an artist,
like that up there.
I love recognizing artists, but I just don't feel like it's my job, but I'm happy but I'm impressed and I'm like a fan.
Yeah.
So I would help to do it because I think it's a nice thing to do. But, for example, there's a lot of artists in town and they all win little awards. If we get into the recognizing everybody, so I don't know, but people should share their views if they have different views or similar views. I'm open.
So it's not really the council's purview, but does it benefit the city to figure out? A lot of stuff gets made here, and nobody knows about it. We've got the sidewalk that has everything made at Republic Studios.
Yeah.
Nobody notices those squares in the sidewalk. But is there a thing that would...
Actually, what are you talking about? The ones here or in Hollywood?
No, the one's in Studio City.
Yeah, which one
Studio
are you
City
talking
has
about?
its own Walk of Fame. If you walk Ventura
Yeah.
Boulevard,
Yeah, it's
it has
great.
hundreds of little gray diamonds, each with the name of a movie or a TV show that was produced here.
Well, why don't we do something with that? I mean, I didn't
They're
even.
good.
I mean,
It's really good.
I obviously now that you mention it, I remember. But maybe we should like bring that forward in some way. It's a great idea, Rick. I mean, but what is so your point is that
The point
we
is
should be
that-
doing this. This is a good idea for Studio
Well,
City.
the point is
Boosterism.
because boosterism to some extent works.
Yeah.
And people should know, like, Van Nuys. What gets made in Van Nuys? I don't know, pornos? That's not fair, but like,
Western
Right.
bagels.
No,
But
that's Vivid, which is across from
Oh.
the In-N-Out burger.
that's right. That's right. Okay, so
I'd like to
biggest
see your
form
Form
in the
700
world,
before we.
Oh,
move
really?
forward. Right. They do excellent work.
And they do. They really do have a good product. So I have a whole room full of them.
All right. No, but the point I think is
Stormy
is a good one. So you're making let's just for a minute examine the case of great idea. Let's recognize things and artists regularly in Studio City, not as if we're giving them money or anything other than recognition and praise.
Right.
Because I don't think we want to. I mean, you can't give money from our perspective. Not that I'm recommending that, but I mean, does that feel like a good area,
I mean,
or
the
does
name
it?
of the city is Studio City. It's where
I mean, I see no problem in whoever's the president now is Patrick Lewis. If he would do it, is to say in his opening comments at the next board meeting, just to say, by the way, in case you all didn't know it, and get more facts as to who the people were. But there were two nominees, and one did win the Oscar, and we just wanted to mention that.
So
I'm
just
saying
have him do
anything wrong
that?
with that.
Yeah, I mean, as I think about it, I'm trying to remember. Did he already honor them? It's possible that he did, the Oakwood folks, but maybe not because they won. But still,
Yeah, I don't remember.
it's a good area. It's nice. They asked. We can ask the board. The board can discuss it
You know
if we
who
want.
started Oakwood in his backyard?
Jim Aspen.
Robert Ryan.
Oh,
Right.
Trivia.
yeah. So do people do we have a motion on that? What do you think?
I'm so
Or should we
moved.
consider it? You're so moved. So you'll move it that we will bring it to the board for consideration to recommend an acknowledgement from the city
Yes.
to consider.
Consider that.
There's, I mean, these are all. This is, I don't know. There could be a tourism angle in that a lot of movies get shot partially here. 40-Year-Old Virgin was all over
No.
Studio City, and Sportsman's Lodge. Anytime they need a room,
Yeah.
they
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, he was riding down the center of my street.
Wow.
And he also rode through North Hollywood Park.
Wow.
Malcolm in the Middle used
Yeah.
the exterior for years.
Yeah.
And you've got this way.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a great area. We've got the Brady Bunch obsession with that house. That's a little overweighted but exciting.
Since they
I
never
mean-
filmed anything there except the exterior with none of the stars.
Yeah, well, maybe it's like a spotlight on Studio City feature that we provide.
Like the LA Times once a week runs a production report. This is what's being made in LA.
Yeah. Production report. Now that requires work to figure out what they're doing, but that's a good thing to be paying attention to if we wanted to. Well, let's. How about this? How about if rather than, we can recommend that these two films be considered for recognition, and also have it be an item for discussion with the board about are there some kind of Studio City recognition, more widely that we want to establish. Is there interest?
It could even be off the Twitter account. Who runs the studio at the Studio City
know.
Twitter account?
We should get you. Maybe you could because you're good at Twitter. I don't know. I've never touched it. Who do you know?
I
who
don't
does
know.
it? Yeah. Are they tweeting?
Yeah.
Oh, they do tweet. Oh, it might be Janine.
I don't even know if it's official. I assume it's official.
It must be. If it's
But
Studio
you
City
got-
NC.
The real Studio City.
Yeah, real Studio City NC.
The real down.
Well, that's a good. So, what was your point that we could?
You know, you don't want to waste a lot of official resources and
Right.
time in board meetings, which are long enough already. But maybe you find a different outlet to
Promote.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's think about it. I mean, maybe what we do is we say, do people have ideas about how we can recognize cool things like the stars and walk of, like some of the cool
New
victories?
restaurants. I mean,
Yeah.
some great places. I mean, they're just popping up. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, restaurants is a whole other kettle of fish because there's so many. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea of being a little bit chirpy and boostery about Studio City. I think that's what they do across the hall at the Business Improvement District for a very specific set of streets,
Right.
and the Chamber of Commerce for all of the businesses, I assume. So there's nothing wrong with us in our little capacity to weigh in on this. So with that, I would agree to bring that to the board for consideration. So moved.
Okay.
And if there's no opposition. Okay, so the last one. So this, Barry, did you not print out the last page?
I didn't.
Can we?
Yeah.
Can we just print out a couple copies? Because I want to demonstrate what I'm looking at. So this is an interesting one that you may or may not have any interest in, but there's a flyer on the wall in some building, in some city offices, that basically says, warning, you could be trespassing if you are not leaving when we ask you to and not, doing X, Y, and Z, you have to leave, or you could be guilty of a misdemeanor.
Yes.
So this is a little bit chilling for people who come to City Hall when they see that. But in my efforts to understand how it works at City Hall, I came to this information because when you come in the front door, they ask you for identification. And yet, if you have sort of a city badge, you go one way and you don't go through security. So there's two channels: public, ID. City badge, you're good. You don't have to even do security. So that's how I got interested. And then when I was once at the Ethics Commission on the 22nd floor of City Hall, and I went to get an agenda for the meeting. I said, "Can I have a copy of the agenda?" And they said, "We're going to have to charge you, Mr. Previn." And I said, "You're going to charge me for the agenda? Are you crazy?" And they said, "No, we're not crazy. That's what we're going to do." To be fair, I was in a little bit of a negotiation with them. So it resulted in a hilarious episode in which police came, there was a conversation. The cops were like, hey, Mr. Previn, really? They won't give you an agenda? Hi, how are you? Yeah. No, let me clarify. So then what happened was, they gave me the agenda, frankly.
How much were they going to charge you?
I don't know, 25 cents or $1.50. No, they wanted to charge me money. So it's not accepted. And then if I went to the meeting, they'd be handed out for free. So this was just a ridiculous thing. But that's how I got interested. And as I looked more closely at it, I realized that the law itself is the top part, 602.1b.
What statute is this out of?
This is the trespassing law.
No. But I mean, what is this? The city?
No, this is the California Code on trespassing. So this
it's a
is
state law.
Yeah, and I'll just read it. It says, an individual who does any of the following will be asked to leave the premises. It says this on a little flyer in the room. Interferes with an employee in the performance of the employee's city duties, or obstructs or intimidates patrons, or enters non-public areas without authorization. Individuals refusing to leave after such a request will be subject to arrest and prosecution under the California Penal Code. Now, it does not say what's right below it, 602.1d. It does not currently say, this section shall not apply to any of the following persons. Any person engaged in lawful labor union activities.
What does that mean?
We can discuss that in a minute. Or any person on the premises who's engaging in activities protected by the California Constitution or the United States Constitution. Now, the reason why, so that's part one. part one is the second part, which is about the protections afforded to residents and people who live here, is not on the list. So you can't see it. So you wouldn't know that if you're there, for example, to get a document that is your right under the Constitution, they can't just intimidate you to leave. So the question is, would they ever be involved in just going around intimidating people to leave City Hall? You know, is there evidence of that happens? And I can say, you know, there is a little bit of evidence of that, to be honest. There is. They don't, you know, they're mindful of the rights, but not that mindful. So the other question that arose, the one question is, should D be added? Do we think D should be added? And two, should the whole thing be in Spanish as well? Because we are in a city which is almost, you know, certainly bilingual. I mean, it's fair to say. And to me, the idea that it would be there in English only, complicated legalese, would be problematic for people who come to City Hall to deal with their Office of Finance. There's all sorts of pesky problems you have to deal with at City Hall, and not just at City Hall. This kind of a warning goes in all city buildings where they want to put this kind of warning. And just to be clear, they want to put this kind of warning up where they have people who are a little, you know, have to interface in a way that they might be like, but. And so at a certain point, the city just wants to say, understandably, sir, ma'am, you have to go, because if you don't, you'll be trespassed. Yeah,
You point to
they point
nobody
to it.
reads the sign at first.
Exactly.
It's what you point to when somebody's being...
When you want to throw someone out.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now I know that because I'm an upstanding citizen who everybody reveres and adores, but I have been not thrown out, but kind of like they will kind of say, we're going to bully past you, sir, and you're going to have to go. And we will not hesitate to call the police. Now, you go, really? They call the police? Now, to be fair, it's an in-house police force. They have a bunch of cops in City Hall anyway, understandably. They've got 15 high and mighty electeds, plus another couple of electeds with the city attorney. So it's understandable there'd be security. But the question is, and it's really simple, should they be updating this to come into the modern times or not? Now, we can hear from both sides because I feel that there might be some disagreement. So you want to attack or you want to respond? Or would you like to make a defense of it? Or we can go either way you want. We have 10 minutes.
Okay,
So you may speak.
well, I don't have to go first.
Well, we'd
but-
like you to.
Okay. Well, you know, these are not unreasonable bases to attract attention and maybe request that, you know. However, if it's a misdemeanor, that should be in the notice. Because I'll give you an example. If you get a ticket over by in Westwood in that big building there, it's the U.S. government. If you look at the fine print on the back, those are misdemeanors, and it's serious. But you think it's just a regular ticket, which is not a misdemeanor; it's an infraction. But so if these are misdemeanors, the trespass warning ought to state that, I think, because that's a crime.
Now, the alternative, because it says you could be arrested, subject to arrest.
No, but
that's different.
But there are crimes, felonies, and misdemeanors are crimes. Okay, so on your record, if you're applying to college, if you're applying to a job, if you're applying this, have you ever been convicted for a misdemeanor? And if you say yes, that's going to really, it could
Doesn't help.
torpedo you.
Gotcha.
Okay, really. Number two, what are they talking about when they say lawful labor union activities?
It's in the law. So
What's-
it's a
what-
good question. We'll have to do some research,
I
but I can
will.
give you
I
my
will.
idea. I can give you my idea of what it
Well,
means.
picketing,
Right.
I'm assuming.
They can't say, get off of city property, you idiots. And they say, well, we're on strike. You can't tell us to leave. And that would be here. 60. They can't say you're trespassing. So I think that's what lawful union activities means. What is the possible alternative? What are you thinking about? You seem
I can't
mortified
think of
by
anything
that.
for
I
a
am,
union.
because it's like they're singling out the unions, which is not a surprise here in this city. But
Well, but I can imagine how the management
it's
of
the
the city,
same, really the same as number 2.
right?
It's picketing or for something or whatever is allowed by the Constitution of the United States. Freedom of speech, gathering, redress grievances,
Exactly.
all that jazz. So really, 1 and 2 are the same, except this particular labor union
Infuriates
activity
you.
thing is
Yeah.
vague and
It
undefined.
was probably written in the 1930s when there was a lot of,
Well,
It may have been.
I think it was probably written, asked to be put in by the unions, not the DA. But I will do this if you want me to. I'll try to get if this is a state law.
Yeah.
There will be cases and there will be some legislative history, and I will try to find out how this got in. And as I'm saying, number 2 is really
A no-brainer.
no different than number 1.
Yeah,
I mean,
well-
you could say lawful activities.
Right. So here's
Here-
a question,
you know,
Jeff,
as
because
opposed
the
to
law
labor.
itself. Here's the thing: when you do these kinds of these summaries of the law, you can skew it one way or the other. And as you pointed out astutely, this is the "you better go now, sir," and they point to it. It's not. They're not like widely making it available for everyone. They're just reserving the right. So what I was going to suggest, is
They have the right.
they have the right, but they should, if they're gonna post something, they should either. I mean, it's just unthinkable to not post the protected activities next to the
also it helps
activities.
them to have them in both. I mean, it helps them.
Yeah, it helps them.
Right.
It helps the city. I agree. I think that. I mean, first of all, I will not stipulate. I will confess that this is something that I have been fighting for, and that they have already agreed to part 1, which is to translate it into Spanish. What they have not agreed to is the addition of 602.1D. So it's already a small victory in the sense that they're going to make it bilingual, but I don't see that. I mean, I can't move forward this way without at least including the protections, because it's inevitable that in this kind of an environment you're going to encounter that kind. This is not to encourage misbehavior. This is not to encourage, raucous violations of the law. This is to make it clear on that document when you are about to throw someone out that they know that they don't have that they have a leg to stand on if they're being thrown out improperly.
Right. The problem with that is, though, it is the Constitution doesn't list every activity that's protected by it. So,
Well, we can't list all the things that are
well, that
protected or not, but you're right.
but it's that would be litigated. If I'm arrested, I make a motion to the court. I say this activity that I was doing is protected by the U.S. Constitution. Here are the cases. Blah blah blah. And I either win or lose.
Right.
But I would say that also the misdemeanor thing, and
question the labor.
Why are
part, yeah.
these two separated? Okay. I mean,
My recollection is I clipped this from the law because when I saw the first sign, it didn't have anything, and I was like, "Wow, that is harsh language." And I'm mindful because I certainly do not want to be arrested. I'll just confess, and I'm never
you
out.
don't.
I'm never
you don't want to be
out of
have a
line or
misdemeanor.
no, but I do not want to also be told stuff that's not true, by people who are just busy. So anyway, long story short, there are tons of people in City Hall who don't want to be carded at the door, who are worried already about their status. I think that we should just have a nice, clean bilingual. I mean, that's what it boils down to. We can litigate the language,
Yeah.
but it should just be clean and better. So that's my proposal, and I don't know, maybe we should take this one not to the board, or what do you think?
Save it. I was going to say,
Since I'm not around, it
since
seems
you're not
excessive,
going
right.
to be there, and Jeff was going to do some
Yeah,
research
so
on it.
let's table
Let
this
him
one.
do that,
Right.
and then revisit it
I agree.
at the next.
I agree. But
committee
let's all
meeting.
agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's vote to do that, which
Okay.
is to consider this because it's important, do a little research, and come back at the
Next
following
month.
meeting.
You
Right.
need a second on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Browser seconds. Good. All right.
Yep.
So that, I believe, brings us to the end of our meeting just in time. Welcome, Mr. Rubin and Joe. Good to see you.
Oh, can I ask you a question? If do they give people tickets?
I've never got a ticket.
Because that's where, again, if the federal thing on the back in the fine print, that's where it says it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah, if you Google this law, it'll come right up. You'll be able to
I'll
see what
find
you're
it,
looking
but
at.
I'm-
So with that, I would move that we adjourn.
Yeah.
And adjourned. There we go.